Okay, there's three settings that you're gonna change that are gonna affect your exposure. There's shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. I'm gonna explain ISO first because quite frankly, that's just the easiest one to explain, and it's essentially your camera's sensitivity to light. Back in the day, you would get film and it would be like an ASA or an ISO, which is just like basically the speed of the film is what they would call it. It basically just means how sensitive is the film? How much light do you need to get enough light? Basically, think of it like this, okay? If you're out in the sun and it's super bright, well, you don't want your camera to be too sensitive because then it's just gonna be way too bright and your picture's just gonna look white because it's just so bright. Now, if you're in a dark room, you wanna crank that sensitivity up because you don't want just a black rectangle, you want a picture. So you need to make it more sensitive so it can really get the most out of that light. So essentially just keeping in mind how much light do you have to work with, and then just adjust whether your camera is really sensitive to light or not as sensitive to light. The next setting you can use to adjust your exposure manually is the aperture. You can adjust the aperture, and what that is essentially how large the opening is on your lens. Now, much like the ISO, obviously, you know, larger opening, you let more light in. Smaller opening, you let less light in. So that affects your exposure. But what exactly does aperture do? Aside from only adjusting your exposure, adjusting your aperture or your f-stop will also allow you to change how much is in focus. So I know you've seen those professional photos where the background's super blurry. Well, this is how you do that. You adjust your aperture and then that'll make your background super blurry, or it'll make everything sharp and you get the entire scene in focus. So really important to choose your aperture in certain scenarios. I mean, if you're trying to get that blurry background and you just can't figure out what's going wrong because you're shooting your camera on automatic, well, chances are your aperture is not open enough, AKA the number is not small enough, and that's why everything is in focus. You're not getting that cool blurry background that you want. Think about it like this. The larger the number, the more things in focus. 22, well, guess what? You got at least 22 things in focus. Versus the smaller the number, let's say you're shooting at like 2.8, well, that's gonna have less stuff in focus. Maybe like 2.8 things are in focus. Pop quiz, and I want you to answer this in the comment. First person to get it right will get pinned, and everybody else that I see that gets it right will get a heart. But here's a quick pop quiz. You wanna photograph your friend. They want a blurry background in the photo. Cool, you gotta drop that aperture number lower, which means you're gonna open your aperture or your f-stop up wider. If you do that, what do you have to do to your ISO? And last but certainly not least is shutter speed. Shutter speed is really fun. You can do some cool dragged shutter photography, and I think it looks awesome. It really confuses people that don't understand photography because they'll see that some of your image is blurry, but some of it's sharp, and it kind of messes with their head a little bit if they don't understand. So I think it's fun, it's really cool, and also it is the third setting that will adjust your exposure. Shutter speed is the speed of your shutter, and you should know this because this is really important, not only for your exposure, but also for motion blur. Another pop quiz. Let's say you're taking a photograph of a waterfall and you want it to look blurry, so you leave your shutter open for a long time. You leave it, you got a slow shutter speed, it takes a while to close. What do you have to do to your ISO? Okay, fine. How about this? You're not allowed to adjust your ISO. You just can't for some reason. And instead, you have to change your aperture to adjust the new exposure that you've set with your slow shutter speed. Again, slow shutter speed, letting more light in. So you're changing your aperture. What do you change it to? A smaller number, which is a larger opening, or a bigger number, which is a smaller opening? So oftentimes I'll be in a situation where I think to myself, I want motion blur or I don't want motion blur. I want a blurry background or I don't want a blurry background. And then from there, I will adjust the other settings that I don't care about as much to achieve the look that I want with manual settings. So that is my brief tutorial on how to shoot your camera on manual mode. I hope that this has helped you understand how a camera works, as well as how those three settings can affect your exposure. In my opinion, if you're going out of your way to get a real camera, something that shoots better than your phone, I feel like you should learn how it works. You should understand photography, and then that'll allow you to have more fun with it. It'll allow you to get creative, adjust your motion blur, adjust your aperture and how much is blurry. And I just think that if you're getting into photography, the whole fun of it is like being creative and making your own voice be heard, and kind of have your own vision be put out there. And I think that if you're letting a camera decide all of your settings for you, then I think that you're kind of giving up that creative freedom to a piece of technology that, in my opinion, is not worth buying. If you're going to do that, in my opinion, if you're going to shoot everything on automatic, just shoot on your phone. That's just my opinion. But that is it. I appreciate you guys so much for watching. Seriously, thank you. It really helps me. Leave a like, leave a subscribe. I probably already said that, but if I didn't, good.